Hi, I'm Davina, and I'm recovering from complex post-traumatic stress disorder and narcissistic abuse, just like you. And today I want to talk about 5 things or 5 ways that we think that keep us stuck in these kind of unhealthy relationships or with a narcissist. So, number one is we need to the belief that we hold, or that we think that there isn't suffering in the world. We're not open to the reality that there is suffering, that there is pain in the world. And this is due to our upbringing, of course. We weren't taught about our feelings. Our feelings weren't even acknowledged, most likely. And so, we didn't have access to very, very valuable information that these feelings were telling us. And not only that, is that we didn't recognize that other people had feelings and anger and grief and all these things. So we lived in a very fake world as children, believing that we didn't have any pain, other people didn't have any pain. We were all just like, yay, look at how happy and cheerful we are, right? We were just taught to be good little girls and boys. And we just thought, that we didn't think that, oh, well, my parents must be traumatized and wounded. We just, of course, as children, we wouldn't have that thought anyway. But even as we grow up, we may refuse to realize that, oh, my husband is really wounded, like he's really wounded from his childhood, or wow, my mother is like, she's really traumatized, that's when we can start coming out of it. So, it's even opening our eyes to the fact that child abuse is very, very common. I've been shocked as a nanny to see, like, in this, it's not just something that happened in the 1950s or the 1970s. It's still happening today in 2021. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and physical abuse too. So it's really, this is coming out of denial, opening our eyes to the fact that there are traumatized people out there. Probably most people are, everyone has some sort of childhood trauma, and of course to different degrees, but so it's there are narcissists out there. There are narcissistic people out there. There are people who are not very nice. They're not very kind because of their own inner wounding. They don't have healthy behaviors because of their own dysfunctional, backgrounds. So that is number one, is really starting to come into the reality of the world of suffering and pain and, of trauma. So that is number one. Number two is something that I've recently learned about, called reverse projection. You've probably heard of projection, which is when we, or the narcissist, or whoever anyway, projects their negative qualities onto somebody else. So this commonly happens in narcissistic abuse, where maybe they are selfish, but they're projecting that onto you, or you're selfish, or they're being unreasonable, but they're telling you you're being unreasonable. So reverse projection is where we feel like, okay, well, I'm empathetic, I'm a caring person, I'm a good communicator. So then you put those qualities onto the other person, or onto the narcissist that you're dealing with, assuming that if you have these qualities, well, they must have these qualities. It's like you really want them to be like you. You really want to believe that this other person, no, they can't not be empathetic. That can't be happening, right? Of course, they must be empathetic. I mean, I'm empathetic. Isn't everybody empathetic? The answer is no, not everybody has empathy. Or, you know, people have it in different amounts and different, and they have different abilities in showing that empathy. They might have cognitive empathy, but they may not actually have the, you know, the actual feeling of empathy and understanding what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. So, yeah, so that is number two, is the reverse projection, believing that someone else has your qualities, your positive qualities. Number three is the belief that you shouldn't have to tell your boundaries or your needs to another person. This might seem kind of logical. You might think, well, I kind of know that, right? But it, like, I know, like, I just feel so frustrated sometimes. I was just tapping into that this morning. Like, I shouldn't have to set boundaries with these people. Aren't these just basic things that everybody does? You know, I get so frustrated. Like, you know, they shouldn't be doing these things in the first place. Why do I need to speak up? And, you know, then I feel like I'm the one that has to rock the boat, and maybe, you know, and yeah, it's just, I think, you know, well, why aren't they already behaving like this the way I want them to? Why don't they do these things automatically? And again, it goes kind of back to what I was saying before about, you know, people are traumatized, right? So when we realize, oh, they're traumatized and that's why they're behaving this way. So, yes, we do need to tell other people our needs. We need to really own um, our needs, our boundaries, and we need to speak them up with clarity, with honesty, and just saying, you know, this is what I need. If you want to enter my space, um, you know, and it's, I don't know, I find this one really hard to like break through. It feels like a wall sometimes, but no, I don't really have to set a boundary. Yes, I do, because other people are not looking out for you. You know, we expected our parents to meet our every need, but as adults, you know, even parents fail, and some fail miserably at that. But as adults, you know, everyone is just taking care of themselves. They're not thinking about, oh, what do you need today? Some of them do. Some people, you know, take that in consideration, but most people are just mainly focused on what they need. And you have every right to focus on what you need and to voice that. So that is number three. Number four is the belief that other people won't or shouldn't cross your boundaries. Yeah, this can be, you know, I think I was in this with my ex-husband, like, he shouldn't be crossing my boundaries, and yet he did over and over again. And I just kept coming back to this, but he shouldn't be. He's my husband, right? But the fact is, people will unknowingly and knowingly cross your boundaries and violate what you've asked them to do. And of course, maybe if you have a new person in your life, it could be just simply because they don't know and you haven't pointed it out to them yet. Like, you might say, you know, I need more spaciousness in our conversations, and they may not be aware of that. So you just need to point it out to them. And they may or may not be on board with that, you know. So you have to be ready to, you know, to possibly walk away. And you may also have a long-term relationship. These ones are a little bit trickier, because if you didn't have any boundaries when you went into it, and now you're speaking up some things and you say, well, I want this and I need this and I'd like you to do this. This person may not be willing to do these things. This person may not be capable of changing their behavior. So yeah, if you're asking, you know, if you're asking someone to be more, I don't know, be more vulnerable in conversations, and they just can't do that, like, they just are not there yet in their evolution, right? So it's really understanding that everybody's going to be in their and their own level of where they are in their evolution. And, they just may not be able to do that, what you want them to do. So yes, other people will cross your boundaries, and it will happen, right? It's up to us to voice those. So the last one, number 5, is labels. I find these the labels that we use can also lead to this real kind of denial of who this person really is and what they're really like. So for example, well, he's my brother, brother is the label. So he's my brother. He shouldn't be dismissing me, but he is, right? Or she's my mother and she should be interested in me, right? She should be interested in my life and want to talk to me and be interested in my inner world, but she isn't. But we've labeled them mother or brother or, spouse or whatever it is, right? Well, he's my husband and he shouldn't be criticizing me, right? And we just live in that denial, and it can go on for years of he shouldn't be doing this, and they are, but we're not facing that. We don't want to face that. Even labels such as, well, they're a nice person. Like if you immediately meet someone and you label them as nice or a good person, but then you notice behaviors that don't seem to line up with that, but you're still calling them a nice person. You're saying, but they're a nice person, so they can't possibly be doing A, B, and C, right? Also compatibility. If you get into a romantic relationship and in the beginning, you're noticing all the ways you're similar, and then you start noticing some behaviors that are not quite lining up with that, and you go, but we're compatible, right? We're so compatible. And you keep telling yourself this story about how compatible you are, and yet there are things that are clearly not aligned with what your values are. So it's once you drop those labels, then it's just a person and you just see those behaviors, then you don't need those labels to justify staying with that person or in that relationship. So those are the 5 things. I'll just go over them quickly again. Number 1 is just really opening up to the fact that there is suffering, there's pain in the world, and there are traumatized people out there, many. Number 2 is the reverse projection, projecting our positive qualities onto someone else or onto the narcissist. Number 3 is falsely believing that we don't need to or we shouldn't have to tell other people our needs and our boundaries. Number 4 is the belief that other people won't or shouldn't cross your boundaries, and yet they will. And number 5 was the labels that we put on people, whether it's mother, father, sister, boss, anyone that, we place certain kind of expectations on. So what is the solution to getting out of these ways of thinking that keep us stuck in the denial? And number 1 that I've noticed is that denial wants us to stay back. It wants us to pull back from reality so that we don't see it, because we don't want to face these things. We don't want to face the pain that, our husband is criticizing us every day, right? That is hugely painful, right? This is the person that's supposed to love me and respect me and honor me. So, it's very difficult. And so be gentle with yourself, because there's this space between how we believe the world is, how we believe the world should be, and how we believe the people should be. And then there's the actual reality. And so there's this gap, right? And once we start closing that gap and as we feel the pain, each time we cry, every time we cry out the pain, the gap starts to close. And so we start to align with truth. So we need to really dive in. So really dive in and and speak up. And, you know, you'll have to like jump over that fear because it's so strong sometimes. But to really dive in and engage with life, and look at what is happening, and, oh, this person said this to me, now what am I going to do? You know, we need to be honest, we need to be setting boundaries, and speaking up our truth. And denial also keeps us in shame. It keeps us blaming ourselves, like, oh, this person's behaving this way, it must be me. It must be because I'm unworthy. It must be because I'm not being assertive enough. It must be because there's something innately wrong with me that this person is doing these behaviors. So it's really important that we really see the other person as they are, and note their behaviors. Like, I'm writing them down, like, this is real, this is what really happened, this is what I objectively observed happening. And really seeing that they have their own dysfunction. And so it's getting close, it's getting up close, it's, instead of pulling back, and it's like really just diving into that, into reality, into what's really happening. And the other solution is also to dive into your feelings. And as I said, to really start closing that gap. And it's so hard because, yeah, it's deeply painful, especially when we think about how our parents actually treated us compared to the fantasy that we have in our head, that they were loving and, you know, empathetic and really allowing and spacious people, when they weren't. So it's like going into those shoulds, like really diving into those shoulds, like, you know, like, I shouldn't have to tell someone not to be dismissive of me, right? But man, that's painful that I have to even tell someone, please don't dismiss me, right? That feels painful. And it feels painful that, you know, someone is not responding to me. That feels painful. Like, so going away from the he shouldn't be or she shouldn't be non-responsive or giving me the silent treatment, to he is doing that, and feel the pain of that. Like, someone is just ignoring you and being dismissive and, you know, being non-responsive. Like, how does that make you feel? Or when that happens, to be a more empowered language, when that happens, how do you feel? Yeah, so, and as I always say with all of this process is, you know, go so slow, so gently. There's nothing here that needs to be forced at all. It's just simply being with whatever is arising for you in the moment. And I was just going to say something else too. And yeah, I was going to say, like, yeah, it needs to be both. I hear a lot of coaches out there just talking about, oh, we just need to change our beliefs and change our way of thinking. And that helps for sure. It definitely helps to educate yourself, learn about narcissism, learn about complex post-traumatic disorder, you know, and start looking at these beliefs that you have. And that is a huge, huge, huge step. But we also need to come down into the heart and feel the pain, because that's the only way that we actually wake up out of the denial. Otherwise, it's purely a kind of an intellectual thing, and that's not going to be an awakening, you know, a full awakening. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful for you or gave you some kind of insight today. I am wishing you very many, many blessings on your journey. I know it is incredibly hard and so much work, so I really honor what you're doing. And I am Davina Shemaya at Boldness Blooming. Thank you for watching.